Hi everyone, it's Dr. Z and welcome to our first episode ever of Next Up Narcissism. I am so excited to be back with you guys. Today we are going back to basics, Narcissism 101. We're going to do the ABCs of Narcissism. For some of you, this is going to be a review. For some of you, this is going to be brand new information. Either way, I am so excited to be here with you. I hope you enjoy the episode. And here is to a very long, healthy relationship. Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Z, and welcome to Next Up Narcissism. I could not be happier to get back into this with you guys. I have missed doing this. I have missed your questions. I have missed giving you education, nuggets of information. So it's really good to be back, and I cannot wait for you to take this journey with me. Let me tell you a little bit about the podcast before we get started. So Next Up Narcissism is going to be about all things narcissism. In addition to all of the mental health aspects of narcissistic abuse, the depression, the anxiety, we are going to talk about it all. We have some of the most amazing guests lined up for you. I cannot wait. Actors, artists, authors, survivors, experts in multiple fields. Really cool conversations. And I want to make sure that I get your feedback as well, because again, this is as much your podcast as it is mine. And I want to make sure that I'm talking about things that you guys really want to hear. So again, I'm really excited for Next Up Narcissism. I think it's going to be really good, and I cannot wait to do this with you guys. So if you have been following me for a while, you know that one of the things I love saying is always start something new insultingly small. Why insultingly small? Because we never want to bite off more than we can chew. And we want to make sure that we take our time. So for today's episode, the ABCs of NPD. For many of you, this will be a refresher course, which is an excellent thing, especially within narcissistic abuse. For those of you who are kind of confused, maybe you're in a relationship like this, you're not sure, you know somebody who's in a relationship like this is going to be extremely informative and educational for you. And I really think you're going to walk away feeling a little bit more empowered, less confused, and definitely less overwhelmed because of all the terminology that's out there right now, which we'll get into. One of the reasons why I really want to start with the basics. There are a couple reasons. One, like I said, there are so many TikTok therapists, Instagram therapists out there that are not therapists, really giving inaccurate information. Now, that being said, what I do think is essential to treatment when I'm working with somebody who is a survivor of narcissistic abuse are survivor stories. They are so unbelievably important in the journey of healing. But that is not all that it can be. Okay, so in addition to survivor stories, which is essential, you must make sure that the information you're getting, the treatment that you're getting, the suggestions that you're getting, the strategies that you're getting are from a qualified mental health professional who is a specialist in this field. Why a specialist? You wouldn't go to your dentist to have heart surgery. Could the dentist talk to you about how the heart works? Of course. Should the dentist do your heart surgery? Absolutely not. So why are terms important? Well, like I said, inaccurate information. Two, it is such a buzzword right now, which is good and bad. We hear narcissism and narcissistic abuse everywhere. So is everybody a narcissist? No. Okay. And I think sometimes people don't differentiate between somebody just being an asshole or somebody that's a narcissist. So I think it's important that we get the correct information out there. I think it's important that people have the fundamentals of narcissistic abuse and narcissistic personality disorder, because like anything else, any sport, if you do not have the fundamentals, it's very hard to improve your performance in a sport. I play tennis pretty often. It's my sanity. And yeah, I'll probably make a lot of really bad tennis references, and I apologize in advance. But I'll always have cool mugs for you guys. See? Meh. But anyway, for tennis, if I didn't have the fundamentals, if I want to get better at it, it's going to be really difficult and really tricky. If I just want to do it and I don't care if I get better, that's one thing. But I haven't really met anybody in treatment that doesn't want to get better. So that's why fundamentals are important. The other is I find that when people use these terms, people who actually have gone through the abuse, narcissistic abuse, or think they're in it, sometimes have been a little bit more, and again, this is just my experience, this is just anecdotal, again, just my personal experience working with people. They're more hesitant to come forward because these terms are out there so frequently and used so interchangeably that they almost don't want to sound cliche. They don't want to sound like they're overreacting. Oh, you think everyone's a narcissist. All these people are narcissists. They're not a narcissist. You're overreacting. They're just a jerk. Or, all right, so they broke up with you. Big deal. Get over it. And so I want to make sure that we are not watering down these terms to the point where people don't want to use them anymore and then don't seek the accurate support and treatment that they really need. And again, none of this is done obviously with malicious intent. I just think that the social media platforms have become so saturated with narcissism terms. And that's, again, really why I want to kind of go through this with you guys. So ABCs of narcissistic abuse. I'm going to take out my notes because I'll tell you right now, if I have to go through the alphabet in my head while I'm talking to you, I'm definitely not going to go in order. So accountability. And I'm going to go through these kind of fast, but just again, this is just a refresher course, okay? And then we'll dive in deeper as we go into future episodes. So accountability. We know narcissists are routinely avoiding accountability. They will not take accountability for any of their behaviors, hurtful consequences of the behaviors. They just won't do it. Can they do it? Yeah. Will they do it? No. It is just not an argument that is worth getting into. It just isn't. You will not win. If you start to argue with them about accountability, they're going to end up manipulating you, gaslighting you, and your energy is just going to be zapped. Period. Blame. Narcissists deflect blame constantly onto other people. Why? Again, because they won't accept accountability, but also it's a very manipulative, strategic strategy if you think about it. Because if I did something really bad or really freaking hurtful and someone's calling me out on it, and instead of apologizing or even not apologizing, just saying, yeah, I did it and I was angry at you, they're going to completely put the blame on you. Well, I wouldn't have done that if you didn't go through my phone, right? Something like, you went through my phone and you really made me angry that you didn't trust me. So, all right, fine. Well, if you don't trust me, then I'm just going to cheat anyway. Something like that. And then before you know it, the gaslighting puts you in this position where you walk away, one, feeling absolutely batshit crazy. You don't know which end is up. And you don't even know what the conversation was you just had. Again, trying to get a narcissist to accept blame and put blame where it belongs is a fight you don't want to get into. Conserve your energy for something else. Okay. Covert. We hear covert, malignant all the time. So just a very brief definition of covert narcissism, because I don't like definitions like this. I don't think they matter. But I like to talk about behaviors, and you'll hear me talk about function of behaviors all the time. So a covert narcissist are people who present as a little bit more kind of, passive aggressive, maybe a little bit more socially avoidant, act a little bit more withdrawn. They play the victim a lot, but in public, they're very lovely and they interact just fine. Nobody would think they are abusive at all. But then behind closed doors, they can be monsters. They're verbally, physically, sexually, financially abusive. They don't act like that in public. So it's really difficult for the person who's on the end of, the receiving end of the abuse to make sense of it, because it's so easy to think, okay, well, they're not like that to anyone else. So clearly it must be me. And these are the thoughts that people who have been in these relationships for a long time have. People ask me all the time, can they control their anger? Yeah, they can. In fact, they are so skilled at controlling their anger. And I know people are listening going, what? No, they're not. They fly off the handle. They're so up and down all over the place. Correct, they are on purpose. Because if you think about it, you could send a narcissist into a rage. Maybe you told them that, you ask them where they put your keys, and they interpret that as you accusing them of God knows what. And they have an absolute outburst that is totally disproportionate to the context of the situation. And then the phone rings and they see it's their boss and they pick up the phone mid rage. Hey, Jim, how are you? That is not somebody who can't control their anger. They are extremely skilled in controlling their emotions. Keep that in mind. Okay. ABCD. See, this is why I have to write it down because, yeah, but I have my coffee. Okay. So DARVO, DARVO is an acronym, and it's an acronym that you'll hear quite often. It's the reversal of blame narcissists frequently use when confronted with their behavior. We talked about they deflect it onto other people, put it onto other people. They will not accept accountability. So it's deny. So deny whatever it is they're being accused of. Attack the other person for either calling them out. You're such a horrible person. How could you accuse me of this? You're crazy. You're this. Did you take your meds today? You're just doing this because your friends hate me. Reverse victim offender. And what that means is through very subtle, nuanced, manipulative tactics and years of this, understand. It's not as simple as somebody saying, what do you mean? No, I didn't do that. And telling somebody to F off. You've been in this cycle for so long that you don't, it's like a leaky faucet. I always say this to my patients. It's like it drips for years and you don't really pay much attention to it. It's just more annoying and it's there, it's a problem, but it's like too much effort to deal with it. But then before you know it, you're standing in your kitchen and your entire house is flooded and you're saying, how the hell did I get here? And then you blame yourself for not calling the plumber sooner. It's kind of like that. So reverse victim and offender is where exactly what it says. You are standing up for yourself, saying, how could you do this to me? And then next thing you know, you're the one being accused of the same behavior, maybe a different version of it. And now you're defending yourself against something you didn't even do. And the whole conversation initially of why the other person did it is totally off the table. The narcissist has managed to remove not only all accountability, but any discussion about their accountability or their actions or their harmful or hurtful behaviors. Because now you've been sitting here defending yourself for God knows how long when you didn't even do anything. We see this a lot in the family court system, which is a whole other animal. And we are going to spend a significant amount of time talking about family court. We're going to have some amazing guests talking about that and how within family court systems, the narcissistic abuser does a really, I hate saying good job, but a really good job at doing this reverse victim offender within the court system. It's actually very sad and very scary. So we're going to definitely talk about that. All right, ABCDE, empathy. Empathy. We have it, right? We have feelings and concerns, and we care about the sadness, the harm, the joy. We care about other people. We care about their emotions. We want other people to be well, right? Narcissists don't. Only if it benefits them, but again, it's fake empathy. Narcissists are amazing at faking empathy. And because non-narcissistic people don't even think about faking empathy, it doesn't even occur to them that that's a thing until they see it in action. And when you see somebody fake empathy, it makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up. And if you have experienced somebody faking empathy and seeing that empty look in their eyes, it's a very particular look. And if you're listening to me say this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's this vacant, nobody's home look. It's not a tired look. It's a literal, I ain't there. No one's there. It's empty. It's blank. There is nothing. There is no empathy. None. It's more than just an unwillingness to acknowledge emotions or an unwillingness to see the viewpoints of others. It's deeper than that. It's not something that can be taught. In fact, there was a couple studies done where, and this is more for antisocial personality disorder, where they tried to teach inmates, I forget what prison it was, they tried to teach inmates empathy skills and strategies. For the inmates that had true antisocial personality, and for those of you listening thinking antisocial means shy, you can thank TikTok therapist for that. Antisocial personality disorder is what you think of when you hear kind of sociopath, right? Overlaps with narcissism, but sociopaths, let's say murder somebody or so. They try to teach sociopaths empathetic skills. And do you know what happened? They didn't learn the empathy. They didn't learn the ability to be empathetic. They actually learned the skills to manipulate other people to try to appear empathetic to get what they needed. So it completely backfired. They also will exploit other people's empathy as a direct way to manipulate them. So they know that if you are a really kind of empathetic person or just a really just genuinely to the core caring person, they are going to exploit that at all costs. They're going to drain every ounce of your energy because you are that empathetic soul. F. See, I have to count like my 6-year-old. Future faking. Okay, so we have 2 F's here. Future faking. Future faking is when, in the beginning stages, when you're being loved on, which we'll get to because guess what my L is. Future faking is when the narcissist early on will make these promises about future stuff. We're going to go to Paris in the spring, right? Or you see that house in the corner, I'm going to buy that for us. If you want a really good movie that demonstrates future faking, because I think there's some movies, and we'll do an episode on that, on movies that really demonstrate narcissistic abuse. But there's a movie with Jennifer Lopez. It's old. I'm not old, obviously, but it's old. With Jennifer Lopez called Enough. And in the very beginning of the movie, when he's love bombing her, I don't want to give it away, but when he's love bombing her, she sees a house that she's always loved, this gorgeous red brick house. We're going to buy that for you one day. I'm going to do this. What does he do? He goes up, he buys the house, cash offer, just knocks on the door randomly. So it's like all these promises of we're going to get engaged. We're going to live this beautiful life. I'm going to take you here and do this for you. And we're going to have 3 kids and we're going to live in Chicago and we're, all this stuff just to get you in their grasp. And the things they're going to promise you for the future are going to be things that they know that you really value. How do they know what you really value? Because during the love bombing stage, they just squeeze it out of you so sneakily, but they get it out of you. And then they base their future promises to you on those values that you have, on those future desires you have for yourself. It's very calculated and it'll look different with another person. It'll still be future faking, but the promises will be completely different and based solely on this other person's values and future plans. Okay, so we talked about future faking. It again kind of creates this fairy tale perception of what they're going to offer you if you stay with them, and then you end up getting none of it, and you actually get far worse. All right, you have G, gray rock. We hear this all the time too. This is a strategy that I work with my patients. A strategy that survivors of narcissistic abuse use. It's not always doable, especially when there's kids in the mix, which is a whole other dynamic. And again, we will absolutely talk about co-parenting. But it's a strategy you can use in response to a narcissist's routinely manipulative behaviors. If you think of a gray rock, right? Literally a gray rock, it's dull, it's boring, it's pointless. Like what it's a paperweight? I don't know. It's gray, it's dull, it's nothing. And if we know anything about narcissists, is that if they can't get supply from you, whether it's through love bombing you, abusing you, scaring you, ignoring you, anything you, if they can't get a reaction from you, whether that's a reaction is happiness, sadness, pride, it doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter what it is. It's just that they get something from you, meaning they have access to your emotions, they have access to your thoughts. When you are a boring, neutral, give them nothing type person, they're not going to come after you anymore, at least not for a while, because you don't give them anything. You literally give them nothing. Now, this is different than ignoring them. That's no contact, and we'll talk about that. Gray rock is different. Let's say a narcissist, which we know they do, routinely sends you this litany of text messages, just novels about bullshit. You don't even know what you're reading anymore. It's like there's some message in there, but it's like it's so tangential. You can't. What gray rocking in that specific example, and I do this with my patients all the time, is let's say they are talking about, let's say they're co-parent. It's not even co-parenting. Let's say that they share custody of their children. And the narcissistic partner said, the non-narcissistic partner says, what time are you bringing the kids here? And the narcissistic ex-partner starts a whole thing. I don't know. And all you care about is this and this and you did that. And somewhere in this message that has nothing to do with the question, they somewhere say they're going to drop them off at 5:00. A gray rock type response to that would not be to respond to the litany of accusatory, dramatic responses in the text message. It would be like, great, see you at 5. You literally gave them nothing. You didn't ignore them. You stuck to the facts, which is so important. Again, we'll get to that too. I want to give you everything, but it's only episode 1. You only stick to the facts. You never use emotion words. If you think of a rock climbing wall, the more little holes and nooks and crannies, the more you can grab onto and climb. You want to give them a completely blank wall that for them to climb up would be impossible. They will just keep sliding down. And what happens when you keep trying to climb something and sliding down? Eventually, you're going to give up because you're going to get tired and you're going to get bored. You want to make them bored with you. Ignoring them doesn't make them bored. Okay? Yes, sometimes obviously you want to ignore them if it's some ridiculous, accusation or comment or behavior. Yes, absolutely. But if it's something that is necessary to respond to, let's say with children, for example, neutral, always neutral, no emotion words, 1 sentence max, always in writing, never in person, never on the phone, always in writing, text, WhatsApp, the court apps that they give people to use, my wizard, all of those types of things. You want it in writing. You only want a few sentences, a few words. That's it. You want to be as boring as humanly possible. Give them the bare minimum. H, hoovering. Okay, so hoovering is a strategy used by narcissists to literally do exactly what it sounds like, suck you back into the narcissistic abuse cycle. Okay, because it is a cycle. People say, well, sometimes they're really great. And then when they're not, it's really bad. I hear that all the time. When it's good, it's good. When it's good, it's great. It's not even good. When it's good, it's great. But when it's bad, it's fucking horrible. Okay? That dichotomy, that up and down, that's on purpose. That's an addiction model almost. And again, we'll talk about that. But that's done on purpose. So people will say, again, it's good, it's good, it's bad, it's bad. And what I have them do is take a step back and say, it's not an episode type thing. It's a cycle. It's cyclical. So these good moments that you're having, these great moments that you're having, they are not in isolation. It's not like they're good, then they're bad, then they're good, then they're bad. There's a function to when the good comes in. There's a function to when the bad comes in. It's calculated. Hoovering is a calculated move in which the narcissist does something to suck you back into the abuse cycle. The love bombing, then we have devaluing, then we have discarding. And then the hoovering is when they kind of bring the carrot back in and dangle it, but never as much in the love bombing phase, but just enough to suck you back in. Now, people often misperceive hoovering as buying you roses, buying you gifts, telling you they love you, begging for your forgiveness, agreeing to go to therapy, which, don't get me wrong, can all be hoovering. But hoovering can also be calling you on your birthday to start a blowout argument. Hoovering is just regaining control and power over you again. It's more than just sucking you back in, which it definitely is, don't get me wrong, but it's more than that. It's making sure that they still have access to you, and not just physically, but emotionally and cognitively. Okay? So that's hoovering. Isolation. Okay, this is one that I think is not talked about enough, at least not in the proper context. Narcissists will go to great lengths to isolate their victims from their loved ones. Okay, and it's done very slowly. So, for example, oh, Jamie, you know your best friend from college. I mean, I know you like her, but there's just something about her. I don't know what it is. I can't trust her. I'm surprised you don't see that because you're so smart. You're so intuitive and good with people. I'm shocked you feel like you can trust her. So now I'm thinking in my head, oh crap, I've trusted this person for, 5 years. I graduated 5 years ago from college. So yeah. Mm-hmm. And, and so I've known this person for half my life. Can they not be trusted? Wait, now I'm confused. Now you start doubting yourself. They start doing it with family members. Does your mom always call this much? Is she this invasive in your life? You let them have that much control over you? You let them have that much power over you? Really? Thought you were stronger than that. Okay. That it's me and you against the world mentality. I know it sounds amazing. It is so dangerous. You and me against the world is me taking you away from anybody in your social network that you could potentially run reality by so that they could ground you and make you see what's really happening. It's isolating and keeping you away from the people that care about you most, who you'd be most likely to tell that I abuse you. And I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen by isolating you and doing it slowly, very slowly. I tell people all the time who have loved ones who are in these relationships from hell, and they say to me, Dr. Z, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to convince him or her that this person's toxic. I don't know how to get them out. My response is this: you can't. All you can do for right now is make sure you are always there for them, as difficult as it may be. They may not call you anymore. They may think the worst about you because the narcissist completely smeared their character. Please try to stick in there for them, because at some point they're going to need you. And it's extremely important in the process of leaving a narcissist to make sure that they have somebody on the outside to literally pull them out of this bubble they have been in for so long. That is their world. That's their reality. That's all they know. It's like an ant. Ready? This is the ridiculous example that I give my patients. They probably think I'm out of my mind. It's the equivalent of an ant crawling on the pavement, having no idea that it's crawling on the pavement in Philadelphia and Pennsylvania and United States, on the planet Earth, in the solar system, floating in the middle of nowhere, right? Like, a person in a narcissistic abusive relationship has lost all perspective, has been totally isolated from the outside world and their social support. They don't know there's anything else out there. Their reality is so worked and manipulated by the narcissist on purpose to keep them locked in this confined space. Okay, so people outside are really who helps pull them out. So stay there for them. Jarring. Okay. One of the most upsetting moments for me as a psychologist who works with narcissistic abuse survivors is when the patient has that moment. It's there's two epiphanies when you're working with people. One is when they realize there's a blueprint to the behavior, and it's this epiphany of, oh my God, wait, I see it now. I see it. And they can start predicting things, and they come in and they're so excited and they feel so empowered. But then there's the other one, the moment, that jarring moment where, in addition to all of that, being able to predict behavior, the reality of, holy shit, was that entire relationship for the last 25 years fake? Was that not real? Did they not love me at all? And that is, we call it, betrayal trauma. That is just so unbelievably, not just traumatic, but just cognitively jarring. It's like finding out, it's like the Truman Show, right? Again, like my analogies I'm giving, I know. The Truman Show, where he finds out that he's like in a reality show, all of a sudden, that his life was not what he thought it was. It's that jarring. Okay. Somebody gives this example. I cannot take credit for this, and I'm blanking on who it is, but it's one of the best analogies I've ever heard. It is the equivalent, finding out, when getting that realization all of a sudden, like, this actually didn't mean anything. All that pain and suffering I went through for what, right? And these are lines that people say to me all the time. Like, what did I just go through? I just wasted years of my life. It is the equivalent of, and again, I cannot take credit for this one. I can take credit for all the other ones. It's not. The ant one is totally mine. No one's stealing the ant one. They don't want it. In an airplane with somebody, jumping out of an airplane with a parachute, right? And your parachute doesn't open, okay? They break it right as you're jumping out, or you don't even have a parachute on, and they push you. Your loved one pushes you, or you thought your loved one pushes you out of the airplane, and you fall to the ground, and you get insanely injured, but you don't die, but you feel like you did. And you lay there on the ground, bleeding, broken, battered. You look up at the sky and you see that plane, and you see your ex or a parent or whoever was the narcissistic abuser staring down at you, laughing, smiling, waving with somebody new next to them. That's what it's like. Best analogy I ever heard. It is literally having the rug pulled out from under you. Jarring. K, knowing. Yes, the narcissist knows what they're doing. They do not care who they hurt in the process of getting what they need and what they want, because you were in the way. That was your fault. You made me do what I needed to do. That's your problem, not mine. You figure it out. I didn't do anything wrong. Nothing's wrong. That's your problem. They know what they're doing. The reason why people have such a hard time with that concept is because we're all, for the most part, good people. So the fact that somebody could knowingly and deliberately and calculated just destroy somebody's life is unfathomable. It's unfathomable. It's much easier to think that, oh, well, they're wounded. They had trauma. And listen, they did. They had trauma. They are, quote, wounded. But I'm not going to sit there and I'm not going to tell my patient who was sexually abused for 30 years that she should have some grace because her narcissistic partner is wounded. Not going to happen. L, love bombing. We know what love bombing is. Love bombing is the first stage of the narcissist abuse cycle, right? That's when it's not just you hit it off so well with someone. You just love spending time with them. You guys are just great, right? You just feel it. Love bombing feels like an absolute tidal wave has struck you, knocked you the hell down where you cannot get up. You can't even breathe. Okay? It is not butterflies to see somebody. It is smothering. And the reason why people don't look at it as weird, or if they do, they push that away, is because it feels so freaking good. Okay? Who doesn't want to be told, you are who I've been looking for my entire life. You are my soulmate. I feel like I've known you forever. Where have you been? You are beautiful. You are smart. You are successful. You are exactly what I need in my life. I am going to make you so happy. Here's flowers. Here's gifts. I want to see you. I'm texting you good night. Good night, beautiful. You wake up in the morning. Beautiful. How are you? I love you. Sending flowers to your office. That's love bombing. And it feels really good. What I tell people, if you want to know if it's love bombing or not, here's a quick tip. Cancel plans with them last minute. Say you're sick. Say you're tired. Go out with your friends. Don't tell them where you're going or that you're going out because you're not boyfriend, girlfriend yet necessarily, right? See what happens when you set a boundary and you say you're sick or you can't go or you cancel plans or you say you want to take things slow. If the response you get is one of understanding, okay, then maybe you just take things slow, right? But if the response you get is a direct disregard for your boundaries, but that's couched in a way that looks sweet. For example, I think this is moving too fast, or you know what, I'm gonna just call it a night. I'm really tired. I'm exhausted. Let's do something tomorrow. All right, I'm so sad you don't feel well. If you need anything, let me know. 10 minutes later, I really miss you. Can I come over and take care of you? No, I'm gonna go to bed. 30 minutes later, you don't want to see me? I don't make you feel better? So it's a total disregard for your boundaries, even though it's couched in a really, quote, caring manner. It almost makes you feel obligated to remain in the relationship. It's also a very deliberate attempt to figure out your vulnerabilities. The reason why narcissists do that, they want to figure out your deepest, darkest secrets, what you value, what your fears are, what traumas you've had, what your insecurities are. And they're going to tell you, oh my God, those are mine too. They're going to try to, it's a psychological term, joining. They're going to try to kind of get on your level with you, right? To make you feel safe, to make you come out with even more of this stuff, okay? What they're doing is they're actually storing it away so that they can pull it out down the road for later use, to use it against you, to use it to manipulate you, to use it to make you feel like crap. So if you find 1 week in, 2 weeks in, 2 months in, that you're talking about your deepest, darkest secrets that you don't tell anybody because you feel so comfortable with this person, and this person also has all of these deep-rooted traumas, that's a red flag. That is not, quote, I connected with somebody on a really loving basis. This is a red flag. And you don't have to break up, but you need to separate yourself and set some boundaries and see what they do in response to those boundaries. Monkeys. Flying monkeys from the Wizard of Oz. That's where they originated from, the witches flying monkeys. Okay. I know some people don't know that, and they don't realize it because they haven't seen the Wizard of Oz, the old one, and so they're not really sure. But that's where it's from. Anyway, so flying monkeys. Narcissists are going to use the people around them as their army. They're going to send those people to do their dirty work. They're going to use them to smear your character. They're going to use them to get information about you. They're going to use them to manipulate you. Maybe they're going to be the ones that call you and say, so how have you been? I haven't seen you in a while, because they're going to report back. Okay. So flying monkeys are the people, they do not have your best interest at mind. They truly believe that they believe the narcissist is bullshit. They're their minions. Got to be careful of those people. When you cut ties with the narcissist, you also must cut ties with them as well. Otherwise, you're still in the cycle. So you see what I said? N, and then I went to M, right? That's why I even written down, I still don't know the damn alphabet. Okay. N, no contact. No contact is exactly what it sounds like. No contact. You do not talk to them, see them, speak to them, speak of them, ask about them, nothing. You block them on all social media platforms. You block their family. You block their friends. You change your locks. You change your phone number. You change your email. You block them on email. You don't go where you know they're going to be. I hate telling people to avoid things in their life, because my goal is to make the nerdy way of saying it, your behavioral repertoire wider. So by avoiding places that they may be, you're shrinking it. But here's the thing. Avoiding some of these places that you know they're going to be actually brings your behavioral repertoire out, meaning it brings your experiences, your options out wider, because you are protecting your sanity. You are protecting your emotional well-being. It is self-care at its finest. So I'm okay avoiding people, places, and things when it comes to a narcissist, when it comes to no contact. You avoid all forms of correspondence. This includes the flying monkeys, the M that came after the N. Why is this important? Well, like I said before, if you become completely boring and you cut off a narcissist's supply, you serve no purpose for them anymore. They don't need you. They don't want you, at least for now. They'll always come back somehow when they need something, whether it's money, sex, an argument, whatever it is. And you'll ignore them then. No contact is not just a temporary thing. But they're going to get bored of you, and they need that supply to live. So they're going to go find somebody else. This is why, again, for another episode, this is why narcissists will be with somebody else within like a day of breaking up with you. Even if it's been a marriage you've been in for like 30 years, right? They always have people waiting in the wings. That's why infidelity is so high. They always have to make sure that they have supply, like waiting in the wings, supply on hand, should they need it. Should they get bored with their current partner? Should they be angry? Whatever the case may be. If they need an argument, if they need to make somebody feel like shit, just so that they can feel better, it's just for numerous reasons. But going no contact with somebody is just cutting that supply completely off. Here's another one of my really cool analogies. You're a car. The narcissist is the car. You're the gas pump. He's going to keep, or she, right? Female narcissists. We're going to talk about them too. Narcissism does not discriminate. So you're filling up the tank. The narcissist is filling up the tank, using all of you up, exhausting you, depleting you of your resources. You're empty now. Now you serve no purpose to them. So they're going to go to a different gas station. They'll get filled up there until they deplete that person, or get bored halfway through, even though they didn't deplete them yet. They're going to leave a little in the tank still, or leave a little in the pump still, so they can come back. But now they're going to come back to you and say, well, maybe they refilled her fuel pump back up. Maybe she's got some more stuff in there. Let me see. That's why they come back after years sometimes on your birthday, just to see if they still have access to you, because that's fuel for them. Okay. All right. Otherworldly. This is a phrase I hear often from survivors who are in therapy in the process of they're at the stage where they're figuring out this is a blueprint. They're figuring out how absolutely toxic, manipulative, and just surreal this experience is. And how scary the manipulation and the level of manipulation is, the kind that makes your hair stand up on your neck, right? Hair stand up on your arms, and you get that feeling, that intuitive gut feeling that something isn't right. People will describe the bizarre behaviors of a narcissist. I mean, really bizarre. We're not talking about somebody being an asshole, okay? We're not even talking about somebody being a really huge asshole. We're talking about somebody who is so deeply manipulative that it's so bizarre, and their behavior is so bizarre that it's surreal. It's otherworldly. And I have had people use this term so often, which is interesting because it's not a term people use all the time. So it's interesting that people use this term all the time when talking about narcissistic abuse. It's so unbelievably horrible in nature that they truly can't comprehend it. They cannot wrap their brain around it, particularly by those who have not experienced it, which is also why education is important. All right, P, pathological liar. All narcissists are pathological liars. I'm making that blanket statement. They will never not be pathological liars. That is what they do. That is what they know. They are experts at it. You will not win at this game to try to convince them or, quote, catch them. They will, we said, kind of reverse the blame, deflect blame when you call them out. It's not even worth calling. Conserve your energy. Conserve your fuel. Do not fill their tank up by getting into it with them. To get their needs met. They manipulate, they control others, they lie, they cheat. They are pathological liars. Okay. Q, quiet. It is not uncommon for people who are in these narcissistic abusive relationships to keep the very quiet. They are ashamed that they can't get out or feel like they can't get out. They are embarrassed. They feel it's their fault. Narcissists do a really good job of making the victim feel like they are scum of the earth. They feel like they are worthless. They are nothing. They are a shell of who they used to be. I hear that all the time. And so because the narcissist convinced them for so long, all of this is their fault, or they're dumb, they're idiots, they're overreacting, whatever it is, they're so embarrassed, or they have so much shame and guilt. They don't talk about it. And remember the I for isolation? There's no one for them to go to. The narcissist has isolated them from everybody close to them they would even be able to tell this to. And go back to O for otherworldly, to even begin to explain narcissistic abuse, because this isn't, again, just somebody who's an asshole. To explain narcissistic abuse, the degree of the manipulation is so hard to communicate. Because when you're saying it, sometimes it actually doesn't even sound as bad as it is. Or it's so far-fetched that people, they're like, what are you you're crazy. That doesn't even make sense. It's really hard to convey just how sick this person is. So people don't have the strength to do it. They don't have the verbiage, which is why I'm doing what I'm doing with you. They don't have the ability cognitively, because they're living in this fog, to even be able to articulate what the hell is going on in this relationship. Also, they're scared. This is why a lot of people don't leave. They're petrified. So people say all the time, why didn't you just leave? Well, forget trauma bonding, and codependency. Like, sometimes that's not even, put that aside. Just basic survival and safety. They're scared to death to leave. They may get hurt. They may get killed. That's the highest rate for, violence. They have no money. They have no assets. They have no job. They have no house. They have nothing in their name. Where are they going? So this is kind of that thought process as to why they don't tell anybody. There's no one to tell. And if they did, how they even explain it? How they get to this point? Rage, narcissistic rage. We hear that all the time. This isn't just an argument. This isn't just somebody yelling. This is rage. This is, they check the hell out. You look at their eyes and nobody's home. Sometimes their pupils will get really big and people will describe their eyes turning black. If you have experienced this, you know what I'm talking about. It is, go back to my J for jarring, an extremely jarring, traumatic, scary as shit experience. Their eyes are black. I mean, this is why, people will say sometimes, they swear that the narcissist is the devil. And when they see that face, that's where that comes from a lot of the time. So it's this reptilian look that they get. You'll hear that too. But it's their, it's kind of, if we get into the biological stuff and the physical stuff and all that stuff, it's a nervous system response to whatever, but that's for a whole other episode of mine. That's too much to talk about, but just know that when narcissists can go into rages, sometimes one of the physiological responses that happens is their pupils get really, really big, really big. It's like 1 second they're fine, the next second they are just, you don't even recognize who they are. It's people describe it as the mask falls off and it's a monster underneath. But again, remember, it's not a mood swing. It's not a mood swing. They're not moody. They don't have, quote, anger issues. They do, but that's not how I would classify it. They are very deliberate in choosing when, how, and to whom they have rage episodes with and how severe they are. Okay. Rage episodes, though, aren't just screaming and yelling and physical abuse, and they are. Sexual abuse is definitely part of that. There's also just silent, completely cutting you off and just leaving, just totally discarding you. Just what, right? Like, it's just abruptly cutting people out. That's also a very common response. Smear campaign, we know what that is. When they completely attack and try to devalue your character, they lie, they just absolutely try to ruin you in an effort to ruin your credibility, because they know you figured them out. They know you're going to talk. They know you're going to talk about the abuse. They know you're going to talk about the lies. And so to get ahead of that, they're going to make you sound so uncredible, not credible. They're going to make you sound very not credible. Is that right? Not credible. They're going to make it so nobody believes you. How about that? No credibility. You won't be taken seriously, or at least there's their effort to not take you seriously. Okay. Especially when they're talking to people who are their flying monkeys, who will help seed this. But also, you have to remember, you probably at that point have people who are angry at you for cutting them out, that if they hear this negative stuff about you from your abuser, they also may be more inclined to believe it as well, or believe it just because they're angry at you, because they don't understand what you're going through. Triangulation. This is a term that is involved not just with narcissistic abuse, but with other types of manipulative personality styles. It's when the narcissist will try to draw a wedge between two people to gain control over somebody in the dynamic, or gain control over a situation. They may speak poorly about one person to the other. They may tell one secrets or favor one over the other, just to kind of make themselves very central in this triangle or in this dynamic. Narcissists love being the owner of information. If you have ever had anybody in a family, let's say, who's been sick, or someone in a family who there's something going on, and there's a narcissistic family member, you're not going to be told anything, or you'll be told pieces, and then your sibling will be told another piece, and then a cousin will be told another piece. It all comes from the same person, the narcissist. They love to own the information because information is like, it's like currency for them. They pick and choose who they want to tell what to, and who they want to lie to, who they want to keep stuff from, who they want to pit against each other. All right, you, unsafe driving. I'm going to do a whole episode on the car and narcissists. But if you have driven with a narcissist in the car, and I post a lot about this on Instagram, you will know it is one of the most dangerous places to be for a bunch of reasons. One, road rage. Two, they will use it to trap you physically. They will use it to abuse you. They will lock you in. They will purposely make you late. They will drive in bad conditions. They will drive through bad neighborhoods. They will make the car experience very uncomfortable, like blasting the radio, or leaving the windows down and putting them on child lock when it's freezing cold or it's raining. And I know people that are listening to this who may not have experienced this ever with a narcissist are saying, that is absolutely insane. Who does that? Narcissists do that. That's why it's so difficult to tell my cue for quiet. That's why it's so difficult for people to talk about it. Because how do you even explain this? What do you mean he put the window down and kept it down in the rain? What the hell? Why would he do that? Right? Or, she blasted the radio so loud that, my ears were ringing. Why would they do that? Why would she do that? It's really hard to explain that. It's like a tantrum. Okay, V, vulnerabilities. I already talked about this, but during the love bombing stage, if you feel that the narcissist is pulling for information about your vulnerabilities, right, is pulling for information about trauma that maybe you went through, and you're talking about this stuff early on in the relationship, that's a red flag. They're doing this for a reason. They're trying to make you feel safe. They're trying to make you feel seen. They're trying to make you feel heard. Who the hell doesn't want to feel that? It's like a drug. So I can't fault anyone. That's why it's preventative medicine. Notice the signs before you get into it, because once you're in, it's really difficult to give up, especially in the love bombing phase. W, walking on eggshells. Again, this isn't necessarily just with narcissists, but it's definitely common with narcissistic relationships. You'll hear this from children and parents and intimate relationships in the workplace, that they always feel they're walking on eggshells with the narcissist. And that is done by the narcissist deliberately. These conditions are set up on purpose. It's something known as intermittent reinforcement. And that is a behavioral model of pattern reinforcement. So let me give you an example. Let's say that you work for me and I tell you exactly what your job description is. And I tell you exactly how many hours you're going to work, and I tell you exactly what I'm going to pay you and when I'm going to pay you. How much anxiety would you have about your job and your salary? Probably none, right? Or very little. But if I told you kind of a half-assed description of what your job is, and I told you, I'm not really sure how I'm going to pay you, it depends on your performance, but I didn't really tell you what the performance measures are. And I'm not going to tell you when I'm going to pay you. I'll just pay you when I feel like it. You're going to have a tremendous amount of anxiety because you have no control. So what are you going to do? You're going to try to figure it out. You're going to walk on eggshells trying to figure the situation out. And just when you think you figured it out, I'm going to change the rules up on you. Just because. But I'm not going to tell you I'm changing the rules up, but I'm not going to tell you what the rules are. It keeps you walking on eggshells. You never know what you're going to get. It's like gambling. So take that and apply it to a dynamic in a narcissistic relationship. You never know what's going to piss mom off. You never know if she's going to fly off the handle. She may fly off the handle because you got a B on your grade, on your test, but then fly off the handle the following week because you got an A- and not an A. Or, you cook your wife dinner and she looks at it and says, this is amazing. I love it. Thank you so much. And then the next day, or a week later, you cook her the same thing because she loves it and you're trying to make her happy. And she takes it and throws it against the wall and says, this is disgusting. Don't ever cook for me like this again, right? It's these arbitrary rules and conditions done to make you constantly feel on edge, uneasy, and really easy to manipulate. Because if you're constantly trying to figure things out, you're not present. And when you're not present, you miss things. When you're not present, you lose things. When you're not present, you can't concentrate. That's why there's so many increases in accidents and clumsiness. And I'll have 30-year-old women come to me or 30-year-old men come to me and say, I swear, I think I have early onset dementia. No, you don't. You've been gaslit and manipulated, and you're walking on eggshells, and you're trying to figure all this out when it's constantly changing. You don't have dementia. You're being abused. And that's what happens to you cognitively. Exes. Narcissists, when speaking of their ex-partners, especially in the love bombing phase, they will always refer to their exes as crazy. They were always the victim. All the exes were crazy. Yo-yo for why? Being in a relationship with somebody who has a narcissistic personality disorder, whether it's a parent, whether it's a friend, colleague, spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, doesn't matter, is going to constantly feel like a yo-yo. It's a constant push-pull, push-pull. And that's that intermittent reinforcement I was talking about, that constant up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, never knowing what you're going to get. Zealous. They are chronically zealous in their efforts to gain control and access to others' emotions. They need to control their partner's narrative. They need to control their reality. They want to confuse them. They want the person to be completely, totally dependent on them to define their reality for them. They feel like a shell of their former self. They are confused. They don't know which end is up. They depend on the narcissistic partner to define their reality, which is a really unbelievably scary place to be. OZ. That's the last letter of the alphabet. So we're done. So that is kind of a fundamental overview of all the basics. And so now we can get into kind of really more detailed topics, different types of abuse, different types of strategies, boundaries, different types of mental health responses to narcissistic abuse, like anxiety and physical health problems and depression and trauma. So thank you guys again. I'm so excited to be doing this with you. I love doing this. I love educating. I love being back with you. And I will see you next week on Next Up Narcissism. Everybody have a wonderful day.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Next Up Narcissism. I hope you found it useful, but most importantly, I hope you found it validating. Want to work one-on-one with me? Visit my website at drjamiezuckerman.com to book a personalized coaching session, and be sure to check out my on-demand workshops on topics like co-parenting with a narcissist, life after leaving, anxiety management strategies, and more. Again, that's drjamiezuckerman.com. You'll also find links to my interactive workbooks, merchandise, resources, and newsletter sign up. Next Up Narcissism is as much your podcast as it is mine. I want to hear your feedback and what you want to hear. So make sure to leave a podcast review wherever you listen, or send an email to nextup@drjamiezuckerman.com. Again, that's nextup@drjamiezuckerman.com. Be sure to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. And as always, thank you so much for listening. Make sure to tune in next week to see what's up next on Next Up Narcissism.